CBT News celebrates 12 years of delivering news, content, coaching, and analysis to the retail automotive community. The strongest team in automotive media, CBT News. You're watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for joining me this morning here at CBT News on Inside Automotive. The used car market has been on a roller coaster ride over the last few years. So where do things stand now? Here to walk us through what's happening today in the used car market is Jonathan Banks, Vice President of Product Development and Valuation Services at J.D. Power. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for coming in and spending some time with us. And I'm sorry that I missed you at NADA this year, especially for the incredible summit. But here you are now, and hope you had a nice, or I should say, the best NADA you could have under the circumstances.
It definitely was interesting, and thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Sure. So let's talk about things a little bit. The effects of COVID-19 on new vehicle sales are still kind of shaping the used car market today as we sit here. Can you explain how the supply shortage is still impacting buyers and dealers in 2025?
Absolutely. So two things are happening at the same time in 2025. So one is the used supply, which will hit a low point in 2025. And this really comes from new vehicle sales from 16 to 19. If you recall, we're at a 17 million to 17.5 million clip. We quickly dropped in 2020, 2021, down to that 13.7 in 2022. So if you imagine, all those lost new sales never come back to the market as used. Yeah. And like I said, 25 is sort of the low point. But meanwhile, we saw new vehicle sales recover in 23 and 24, going up to 15.5 and 16. So we have this recovery in sales that now that recovery is also has a lower price point on the new models being sold. There's incentives and some discounting. So that puts downward pressure. So we have tight used supply, and then an increase in sales on the new side that puts downward pressure from pricing. Okay. So both things kind of happening in earnest in 25. It was like nascent, I would say, in 24.
Okay, gotcha. So, with the high cost of used vehicles remaining high and affordability still a growing concern for consumers and dealers for that matter, what strategies do you recommend for dealers to stay competitive in this challenging market that we're in?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. One thing that I did notice when I was watching a lot of videos about trade and equity, people were putting up red flags about equity position. And in fact, what's really happening, negative equity is increasing, but in the used market, the used trade equity of sales through franchise dealers is only 1 out of 4 consumers have negative equity. Okay. Meanwhile, the folks that do have a trade-in have about $4,800 in equity. And really? To put that in perspective, crazy. It's double what we had pre-COVID. Yeah. So you have these buyers with equity. We have a few buyers without equity. But then when we think about, okay, well, there's an affordability challenge, because even the folks with equity, if you look at the normal turn of a vehicle for a consumer, it's 6 to 7 years. So if you can imagine, the last time I've been to market was 6 years ago. So like 2019. So it's before COVID. Yeah. And when I go out into the market, I start looking around for cars, and guess what? They're really expensive. Right. Total sticker shock. So even though you have this equity, it's still going to be sticker shock. And when we think about, since COVID, we've seen wage growth grow about 20%, but when you start factoring in all the inflation for cars like here, food and energy and everything else, real wage growth is actually negative. So people don't feel richer. And then you look at these prices and you go, wow, what do I do? Right. Any suggestions on what they do? Yes, I do. My long introduction to what you should do. So there's a couple things that I flagged. One is there's a big pool of younger buyers that are sitting on the sidelines. So, and there's a lot of reasons for it that have been documented. Some of them I think are real. Some of them I think are just affordability. But they talk about subscriptions and Ubers and the fact that they don't really need to hang out in person. They could just, go on virtual hangouts and stuff like that. Maybe not.
Yeah.
But we are seeing we're seeing a pullback in interest, even in the number of licensed drivers, compared to the 80s.
Yeah.
16-year-olds and under, it's about half of what it was. It was 50% in the 80s. Now it's like 25.
Okay.
And 18-year-olds, only 60% are getting their licenses versus 80%. So there is an issue there. But in my mind, we need to have an affordable option. And surprisingly, these old vehicles that were long forgotten, like you remember the Focus?
Yeah.
Ford Focus?
Sure. Of course.
Remember it was like cool back in, I don't know, 2008 maybe. I mean, I don't even know if you call it cool, but it was a decent car. Well, Focus, Sonic, the GM small car.
Yep.
Well, Civics are just turning like mad. But a lot of maybe these cars that you forgot about that are inexpensive.
Yeah.
That maybe the later model years where they have the tech that you kind of need. You might want to look at like getting more affordable options. So that's one thing.
Okay.
The other thing is because you start looking at payments, talk about sticker shock just from price. Well, sticker shock from payment.
Yeah.
A used payment on average through franchise dealers is what a new payment used to be in 2019.
Right.
So
kind
of wow, mind blowing.
That is
so
crazy.
So the other thing I would recommend then is you kind of go down to a bit older model years than you're used to.
Yeah.
So you really want to pick and choose and really look for affordability. You want to expand your portfolio a bit, and you want to really think about those affordable options, because I think those sidelines buyer. When I talk about younger buyers too, I'm not talking like 18 and younger. I'm talking 35 and younger. So it's like young to me.
Yeah, of course.
But,
yeah.
I mean, these folks have been working for a while. But I'm talking about a big pool of buyers. So It's just expand your horizons and maybe look for that affordable option. Maybe look in segments that maybe were forgotten because they're showing high turn and high profitability for those compact and small cars. So,
yeah, sure. Let's talk about getting those vehicles, whether they be small or SUVs or otherwise, on the used car dealer lots. The competition among independents is strong for new car dealers, as well as companies like CarMax or Carvana that are battling, the market share, right? How can franchise dealers adjust their approach to sourcing and pricing used vehicles to maintain, that profitability that they're looking for?
Yeah, it's a good one, and it's going to be a tough market, and kind of goes back to frame it with strap in, because you're going to be looking at the lowest used supply that you've seen since 2018. Yeah. So you're already going to be fighting.
Yeah.
And we've seen that up. I don't know if you remember in June, everyone's like, CarMax, it's imploding, what's happening? And then the second half, they blew up.
Yeah.
Like 5% increase in sales, started, I think, about the same increase in their consumer purchases. So we know, and you hear about Carvana, they're small, but we know the independents are fighting for that inventory too.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So the franchise dealers have been amazing with the way that they've been procuring cars and using technology. I mean, I've been talking about this for 15 years. But I would say now it's a bit different in that like optimizing profitability per unit is going to be really paramount. What do I mean by that? I mean, like during COVID, you just bought whatever you wanted and you made money.
Right.
I mean, you just thought, okay, I could sell SUVs, and I'm a Ford dealer. I'm just going to buy all the Escapes and all the Explorers and all the Expeditions that I want. Right. And I'm just going to blow them out. And I'm going to my profits were like 4,000 per unit.
Yeah.
And now you need to be a bit more targeted. So even within that Explorer lineup, you might want to say, okay, I want to have a lower mix of trim. This is obvious, but there might be, hey, I know that even this package on it maybe sells quicker with the sunroof and the leather, and maybe I don't want to have the high end, or if I have the high end, I know I'm going to be holding it longer. So to me, it's just much more individual vehicle based than, oh, I sell 10 Grand Cherokees or I sell 10 Explorers in a month, and I just go about it that way. So I would say just much more specificity on each individual unit.
Yeah.
It's going to be a battle out there. I'm really curious to see what happens, because it's going to be tight. And that lease maturity volume too, everyone talks about it. Leases, remember, went away pretty much completely in 2022. So that volume, lowest maturity level in I can't remember, I think it's 10, 15 years. We're thinking there are only about 2 million lease maturities coming back, which is like half of what we're used to. Yeah, it's going to be a battle, but profitability is still good. And, used models, no matter what happens with new prices, we're going to see discounting. Used models inherently are a better deal, just by the nature of them being cheaper.
Yeah.
Well, not a better deal, but more affordable. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, no doubt. And when you've got the price of new cars being what they are now because of the huge inventory of vehicles, dealers are, again, we're back to kind of a race to the bottom on gross profit on new vehicles. And then the situation with used vehicles being what it is, you're really coming in on the price of that new car when you're looking at a vehicle that might be 2 or 3 years old, right? Maybe even 4 years old, where the justification becomes a little bit difficult, doesn't it?
Yep, this is true.
Yeah.
And the more we see that inventory increase, the more we're going to be seeing the discounts, and the more we're going to see, that real fine line of what is that consumer going to do. Remember, consumers during like the peak of COVID shifted from the new market to the used market.
Yeah.
And then like 24 was kind of a wash. 25, I would argue, we're probably going to see the opposite effect. I think more people that were on the fence between new and used that can afford it are going to move towards new because there's going to be some deals. I mean, we've seen deals that are pretty aggressive for a lot of vehicles out there. So it'll be tempting. So it's going to be a real balance on getting the consumer in the right vehicle and the right deal. I guess it's a good thing, but it's going to be a challenge to really monitor that.
Yeah.
Especially for the franchise dealers that are selling new and used.
Yeah, no question about it. Jonathan Banks, Vice President of Product Development and Valuation Services at J.D. Power. Thank you so much for stopping by CBT News. We appreciate you giving us this update on the used market. I know that our viewers will get a lot out of it. So thanks so much.
Yep. Thank you, Jim.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.